Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 3 of my 2023 reads. This week I read kind of a wide variety of things, and some of them I absolutely loved and some of them weren't quite for me. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I read The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a classic sci-fi that really looks at some political systems and ideas and kind of philosophizes about that. We follow a man who comes from a moon where everybody there is sort of a revolutionary. They have an anarchist society and they're very isolationist. And he ends up going to the planet that all of those anarchists originally came from. And that planet has a lot of abundance, but it also has a very capitalist society with really rich people and also really poor people. And so it's looking at the kind of culture shock of him moving from the moon to the planet, as well as interspersing that with chapters looking at his childhood through adulthood and kind of what formed him and his political beliefs. This is a classic sci-fi that you've probably heard about, which is good because I'm not going to review it since this is a HaperCollins title. And if you're not familiar, currently the HaperCollins union is on strike. And they are asking reviewers to not review those books. So I will not, and I will leave a link below if you want to learn more about their strike. Next, I read Kiss Me, Catalina by Priscilla Oliveras. This is the second book in the Queens of Mariachi contemporary romance series, which is all about retellings of Shakespeare plays. I had previously read West Side Love Story, which was the first book, and thought it was so good. So I was really excited to pick up this one, and it did not disappoint. So the basic premise of this is that we follow Catalina, who is kind of the leader of her mariachi band, and it's an all-female mariachi band of her adopted sisters. And she is super driven, she has a lot of passion, she is a little bit impulsive and has like a little bit of anger, but she wants to be this huge mariachi star. And she gets the opportunity to go on tour with a very famous prince of mariachi. And they end up kind of butting heads a little bit, but also really being very attracted to each other. And they both have kind of these different goals within what they want for their careers and these sorts of things. So I thought that this book was just so much fun. I loved the writing, I loved the setting, I loved the characters. I also loved the kind of modern adaptation. Taming of the Shrew is not one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. I don't like the premise. And I think that this one gets away from that idea of taming strong women and instead focuses on really helping Catalina reach her goals, as well as like acknowledging that she maybe has some like issues with anger and impulse and that sort of thing. I thought that the heat factor in this was really interesting because it is very closed door, and they don't even get to the kind of the closed doors part of the book until like the last 20%, but the attraction and the yearning is so steamy in a sense. So I thought that that was excellent, and I just liked the characters. I had such a fun time with this. I loved the focus on kind of ambitious women who are unapologetically confident and proud and know what their worth is, kind of fighting against the patriarchy. I loved that kind of theme throughout this. And there's also just a lot in this about family dynamics and dealing with kind of difficult relationships with your parents and all sorts of really interesting things. So this was fantastic, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Cryptid Club by Sarah Andersen, which is a collection of just short, cute little comics about these different cryptids. So things like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and Slender Man and Cthulhu and all of these sorts of monsters, but imagining them as just like very socially anxious. It is super cute. I really love Sarah's scribbles, the other comic that Sarah Andersen kind of produces regularly, and this is just adorable. One, the drawing style is so cute, but two, this idea of imagining all of these sort of cryptids as very cute people who are a little bit socially anxious but also kind of want to make friends, that sort of thing. It's adorable. I laughed at this a ton. I don't know that there's like huge depth to this, but it is such a fun, cute little read. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek, Sehee, translated from Korean by Anton. So this is sort of a memoir, but actually more like transcripts of some therapy sessions that the author was having when she kind of realized that she was having just sort of ongoing low-grade depression, and realized she wanted to work through some of that. So the majority of this book is just transcripts from those early sessions, but there's also some essays at the end with her just reflecting on various topics of kind of mental health. I think that this is really interesting because it's dealing with a lot of kind of mental health issues in terms of the feel that you need to perform, to be perfect, what that can drive people to in terms of lying to appear more interesting, or constantly judging themselves, or trying to navigate friendships where you always want to have like a really positive face on, all these sorts of things. So I think that it's really interesting getting that insight into the sort of mental health problems. But the book overall, I struggled with a little bit. I really had a hard time getting through this, even though it's quite short, because I struggled with the writing style a lot. I think that it's very possible that I'm just not used to translated Korean works, but it's also just possible that it's not kind of the writing style that works for me. It felt very jarring at times, very non sequitur, where it just suddenly we would switch topics, and this could be just a condensed form of these transcripts, but even the essays at the end, I just wasn't 100% into the writing, which made it difficult for me. Plus, I think that Baek, Sehee's experiences are just so different from mine that I found it really hard to find some points of connection. And also the therapy sessions are just so different from any therapy that I've gone to before. So it was a little hard for me to connect and relate to everything. But in another sense, that's a great thing about a translated work, where it's a very different experience from yours. So that's very interesting, even if I found it hard to get through. So yeah, I have pretty mixed feelings about this one, but I know some other people have absolutely loved it. So if you're interested in reading more mental health memoirs, and maybe if you deal with those feelings of being judged by yourself and by society, this could be a really meaningful memoir to pick up. So overall for me, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read Uncommon Charm by Emily Bergslien and Kat Weaver. This is a really cool novella set in 1925. That is about these two kids, a 17-year-old girl who has been sent home from school, a little bit in disgrace, but she is not somebody to be disgraced. She is a little bit wild, very witty, very funny, and she's been sent home to live with her mom, who is actually a very great magician, although she is a little bit intimidating, and comes to live with them, sort of a distant cousin who is a 14-year-old boy that is going to be an apprentice to her mother. And so it's sort of about him coming into their lives and about the friendship that they develop, and about him learning to control his magic, as well as them dealing with a very strained relationship that he has with his father, since he's an illegitimate son, and that father is, kind of part of their distant family. So this had really great atmosphere. I loved the writing. I thought that it had just really great characters, a great narrative voice. The magic in this was also really fascinating and interesting, and it deals with some pretty heavy topics. I'll put some content notes down below, so check those out if you're interested, to deal with issues within their family. And so I thought that this was really cool. It did at times get just a little bit info dumpy about sort of the philosophy of how magic works in this world, but other than that, I thought this was just such a great read. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Oh, and Reija at the Book Finch is who I heard about this from originally, and they put it on their best of the year list. I'll link that video below if you want to check out their list. And I'm on board. I think this is such a great novella, so I'll probably nominate this for the Hugos this year. Okay, so that is everything that I read this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you're interested in them, you want to chat with me about them, or if you read anything interesting this week that you want to share with me, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.